Attaching things to other things temporarily is something that used to require a bit of effort in Lightwave. Now there's a lot of different ways to do this, but I feel that my approach using the grabber tool that I made balances the best of flexibility, scene management, and ease of use. I'm not going to do any kind of polished animation, but let's assume that our goal is to have this character pick up these shades and wear them. So I'll make a hastily thrown together animation of the character's hand moving towards the shades. At this frame, we want the character's hand to control the shades, so with the hand bone selected, use the grabber tool on it. Now we need to select the item that we wish for this hand bone to grab, then use the tool again. From this frame onward, the shades will move with the hand. Two controllers appear after running the grabber tool. This blue dial can be rotated on its bank to control the falloff of this constraint. By default, this transition happens within a single keyframe, but if you want a softer grab, you can always push the second keyframe forward in the timeline. This effect becomes much more obvious if I move the character's hand away from where I initially ran the grabber tool. The green controller is your means of moving the grabbed item around, so you don't lose control over anything when using this tool. Obviously, we'd want to reposition the glasses in such a way to make it easier for the character to put the shades on. When doing this, I recommend going into the Modify tab and setting the coordinate system for both position and rotation to World. So I'll hit T to activate Move Mode, then check World, then hit Y to activate Rotate Mode, and then check World again. These options shown are relative to the adjustment mode that you are in, which is why I had to do this twice. Okay, so we need to make it so that at this keyframe, the movement of the shades will be determined by the head bone of the character. There are two different ways to do this, and I'm going to show you both, because they have their advantages and disadvantages. The first method is to use grabber on the grabber null. This is a recent change that I made, so you need the latest version of RR Tools to do this. The advantage of doing it this way is that if you move around the character slightly on the same frame that you applied grabber to, the constraint will update with these movements, and the fall-off dial of the controller can be used to soften things up. The disadvantage, however, lies with having more items in your scene to manage. You have more stuff in the way, and if you go too far with this grabber on grabber action, it can be really hard to visually tell which items are constrained to which grabber, so please do yourself a favor and only use this approach if you really need it. Let's take a look at the second method, which is what I personally use most of the time. At the keyframe where the control of the shades needs to transfer from the character's hand to the head bone, select the grabber null and run grabber. This will bake the keyframes of the shades all the way up to the position of the playhead and remove the grabber constraint. The movement of these shades are now entirely consistent of keyframes. Now I can use grabber to constrain these shades to the head to make them move with it. While this does leave you with a far less cluttered control setup that will never get confusing on you, the disadvantage of going this route, of course, is that any changes that you make to the character's animation will not update the position of the shades, which means that you have to re-grab them in order to update this animation. I'll leave it up to you to decide which method is best for your particular workflow needs in any given animation scene.